Once you know how to do this, Ludine, there is nothing that needs to hold you back anymore. Okay? Because
Yeah.
here we are in a world that is constantly making us wrong. Has everybody noticed that? Constantly beating you up, constantly telling you that you should be better, that you should be able to do stuff differently. And all of that stuff just keeps us trapped inside of our patterns. So what this does is it's a method of subtracting what's in the way of you discovering who you actually are at the core. And we're just going to remove everything that is between you and your successful, happy, peaceful self.
Let's learn how our next guest gets up, dress up, and show up on purpose. Enjoy the episode. Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunid, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, Adele Spraggon. She is an award-winning author, a thought leader, an international trainer, and fearless speaker, and has an incredible background and accolades to follow her name. She's a behavioral expert, and so today we're going to talk about the brain. We're going to talk about limiting beliefs, and we're talking about her journey here so far. So it's really an honor to have her on the show. So with no further ado, Adele, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Lily.
Yes, happy to have you here. Go ahead and tell us about your journey. I mean, you've won several awards, right? Women of Inspiration, Customer Experience. You've done, you know, you've been one of the top professionals for years. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, well, it's been quite a ride, as most people go through in life. So I started a long time ago in the coaching industry. I was a lead coach at one of the top businesses in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was, though, I was still very much struggling within myself to apply what I was teaching to my own psyche, to my own personal development path. I kept getting stopped. I kept quitting. I kept having panic attacks, and it didn't matter how many affirmations I did. It didn't matter how much visualization I did. I couldn't get past my own blocks. So eventually I decided that the problem couldn't be me. Eventually I came to the conclusion that no, it's got to be the operating instructions that I'm using. So I took myself to university and I studied, how does this human brain of ours work? What is this human equation that we're all following? And sure enough, I discovered that our brain works by way of creating patterns. And it's those patterns that continue to take actions over and over again. And so once I knew that, I knew what I had to do. I had to remove my pattern for quitting. I had to remove my pattern for panic attacks. And once I could remove that pattern, then the panic attacks went away. The desire to quit just melted away. It just disappeared. And at that point, I started to teach this method. I started to show people how to do this because I thought people have to know this. And that was 12 years ago. And since then, this technique has just been taught around the world. It's remarkably effective. And I'm really interested in sharing with your audience what I've come to learn because, I think everybody kind of needs to know what I know.
Yeah, of course. Those old patterns, they're like with tapes, recorded tapes playing over and over again. And they're really detrimental because we don't even know sometimes where, like you said, the anxiety is coming from. We don't even know where, okay, why do we always fall for the same guy? Why is it that we always find ourselves in this trap? We always find ourselves hitting the same wall. And that happened to me. As well. So please enlighten us and tell us, how do we identify these old recordings, these old patterns, and how do we pluck them out one by one?
Yeah, brilliant. So our brain works by way of neural pathways. Most people know that. You can picture a connection in your brain. And once we have formed that connection, a neural pathway in our brain, it is that is responsible for the actions we take or the behaviors that we adopt or the beliefs that we hold. So that's why we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, despite knowing that it doesn't work. Like all the knowledge that we gain doesn't actually help us to change the behavior when we really think about it. And that's because that neural pathway is still there in the brain. So let's just identify a pattern, shall we? An easy way to identify when you're doing something that's not working for you. A pattern is a physical sensation, emotion, and thought. When the three parts of our being come together, physical, emotional, and mental, it causes a particular action, a particular behavior, a particular belief. And so we can identify our patterns that are under those things that don't work for us. So let's just say that we're attracted to the same guy over and over again. That was one example you gave, right? What causes that? Well, a pattern in our brain is causing us to feel physically attracted, is causing the emotion of excitement and desire, and is causing the thought, this guy is for me. Okay, great. Can we remove that pattern? Yes. That is the brilliance of our brain. It has plasticity. It is able to be rewired. And once we know how to rewire it, we can remove a pattern that is not working on our behalf. It's not taking us in the direction that we want to go.
Right. Yeah. And so how do we begin that rewiring? Is it changing the dialogue, the conversation that's happening in our heads? So the automatic negative thoughts, right? We have 60,000 thoughts a day and 90% of them are negative. And it's from that pattern that you're talking about. And this could stem from childhood trauma. Somebody said no to us when we were 5 years old, and like we think we can't have anything, we're not worthy of having anything in life. So how do we begin to do the reverse on this?
Yeah, brilliant. So it's a matter. I'm going to walk you through the 4 steps. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that all right? Okay,
this.
Great. So first step we just done. You need to identify what it is what the pattern is. So most people spend a lot of time working at the surface, right? Like, how do I change the situation? How do I change myself? How do I change the other person? Most of us spend a lot of time up there. Let's drop below the water. So everybody here is listening. Please think of something that is not working for you. Some action you're taking, some behavior you're adopting, or some belief that you're holding about yourself or about somebody else. And just hold it in your brain for a moment. Now, I'm going to walk you through how to deconstruct this. So drop your awareness into your body and notice how you feel as you're thinking about this. Notice what happens physically in the body. Right? So might notice some sensation. For example, you might notice that your stomach tenses, or that you get a lump in your throat, or your face changes in some way. Okay, so just label that physical sensation. Now notice your emotion and try and give it a label if you can. So maybe fear or anger, or maybe helplessness. Whatever it is you're feeling, you're just going to label it. No judging now, just label. And now lastly, just note how your mind is thinking. It's their fault, it's my fault, there's something wrong with me, something wrong with the situation. Whatever your mind is thinking, just note. Okay, what you just did was step 1 of a 4-step technique. The second step is we're going to flip the switch. So I'm going to have to explain this for a moment. Here is our brain, and it's locked inside a skull, a dark, silent room. And there's no sound in there. There's no smell in there. There's no taste. There's no touch. There's nothing in here except these electrical impulses. So when we flip the switch, we need to own that as a pattern, our belief, our behavior as a pattern, rather than it's driven by the situation out there. Okay? Because when we think about it, we don't really have any access to what's going on out here. All we have access to is what our brain interprets is going on out here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when we flip that switch, we own it as a pattern. So you're actually going to say to yourself, I created that. Now, that's not said through blame and shame. That's not said through, I created that, therefore it's my fault. No, it's just an acknowledgement that your brain at some point in your past, when you were 5 years old, created a pattern that is now causing you to take this particular action. Okay, so that's step 2. Then step 3, we're going to deconstruct or tease apart that pattern. Now that step's a little tricky for me to teach in 20 minutes. So, but get my book. You can get it free on my website. Get my book. The entire technique is in there and it'll teach you how to do it. Okay. But basically what you're doing is you're just going to just be a surrendered witness to what is going on rather than getting all caught up in what's going on. We oftentimes try and fix and change everything. And then the last step is where we're going to create those new patterns. And again, it's in the book. So get the book. Okay. That's as simple as the technique is. But boy, is it profound. Once you know how to do this, Ludine, there is nothing that needs to hold you back anymore. Okay? Because here we are in a world that is constantly making us wrong. Has everybody noticed that? Constantly beating you up, constantly telling you that you should be better, that you should be able to do stuff differently. And all of that stuff just keeps us trapped inside of our patterns. So what this does is it's a method of subtracting what's in the way of you discovering who you actually are at the core. And we're just going to remove everything that is between you and your successful, happy, peaceful self, because it's in there. It's like an onion, and it's in there in your brain. And we just have to remove the layers that are between you and that.
That's fascinating. And that I can imagine will help unlock your potential, right? It's almost like a limitless that is opened up because you're removing this barrier and you're learning how to remove it daily because it's constant.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you were saying before, like how many accolades I have. That's all I do is I just remove what's in the way of me not feeling that successful. And then boom, you're just that successful. And I'm not the only one. Like I said, I've taught this to thousands of people around the world, and my book teaches it to thousands of others. And it's just remarkable, the capacity of the human brain when we know how to work in the way it functions rather than in the way we're told it functions.
Yeah, let's talk about the dichotomy of the left brain, left side of the brain.
Yeah, so our left brain is our virtual map. So what neuroscience has now determined is the right hemisphere of your brain is forever absorbing everything that is in this immediate space. Okay. Then the right hemisphere passes that information over to the left where it's interpreted. So those patterns, those interpretations that the brain is doing, those are occurring in the left hemisphere. The left hemisphere, once it's formed a pattern, it has two ways that it can think. Either what it is already thinking, or the opposite of what it's already thinking and believing. Okay? But those are the only two ways it can think. And when you think about it, you'll see this in your own life. So you've got a problem. Let's take that one that you said, like you're dating the wrong guy over and over again. Okay. So your brain is going to tell you, okay, either you can date these guys or you can be alone, right? Or it will tell you either you can date them or you can, date somebody totally different. But none of that is actually true. That either or is just the left brain's perspective. There is a much richer, nuanced, complete picture that is available inside the right hemisphere that the left hemisphere is cut off from. Okay? And in that larger perspective is where your answer actually lies. So the left hemisphere will say either this or the opposite of this. The right hemisphere says, not so fast. Let's uncover the bigger picture. Let's uncover the mystery that is below what you're thinking.
Huh, fascinating. And so it's not so black and white. It's not so like logical. There's gray areas, gray matter, pun intended.
Right. Yes.
Gray areas to actually from wiggle to decipher what's happening with the brain. Tell us about, I know it's very crucial, what you feed the mind is essential, like affirmations and meditation, like to help calm the brain down, the mind down. And also we want to talk about what your morning routine is. I'm curious to see what you incorporate up in there to help you, show up for all the people you have throughout your life. So how do you get up, dress up, and show up?
Yeah, well, every morning I repattern. So every morning I apply the 4-step repatterning technique to whatever I am feeling in the moment. So I'm no longer at the point where I typically have problems. That doesn't mean that I don't have problems. Please don't misunderstand. But I'm now repattern to the point where my problems are not as big as they used to feel. Okay. So like I said, I used to have panic attacks. I used to quit. I used to do all of this stuff that didn't work for me. You'll be free of that as you keep applying the technique. Okay. But I still, every morning, I apply the 4-step repatterning technique to whatever pattern is running. And then throughout the day, if something triggers me, then I will be applying the 4-step repatterning technique again. So what I always recommend to everybody who wants to repattern their brain is apply the technique twice a day. Find 2 times during the day where you can fit it into your life. It's just a 2-minute technique. It doesn't take very long, okay? But I do it first thing in the morning, and then I do it anytime in the afternoon if I'm triggered, and then I do it once in the evening, okay? So that's my daily routine. It typically, I don't spend more than 10 minutes in totality applying the technique. And it just makes a remarkable difference. Like just you'll be peaceful, you'll be happy, you won't be stressed as much anymore. Your creative solutions will present themselves as you need them. And so the more you do it, the more your brain just keeps upgrading every time it needs to, right? So every time it gets trapped in an old pattern, it will just let it go and upgrade it.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's continuous. This work is continuous.
Yeah.
Just like taking a shower, right? It doesn't last. You
That's it. That's it. And you said meditation, right? Yeah, exactly. Just like meditation, you just keep meditating. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. It's just much quicker than meditation.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's good to know. So it's a form of meditation. It's a form of just reprogramming the subconscious mind, reprogramming the mind and speaking life, right?
Yes.
Transforming and renewing the mind in that way that you're putting in good thoughts. That dialogue is positive. It's what you want instead of that fear-ridden anxiety persona that by default lives up there.
That's right. That's right. So the inner critic melts away. The stress reaction melts away. All of that just over time. Like, I mean, you know, you're not going to see that in the first day or so, but in 6 weeks' time, you will see a remarkable reduction in the inner critic and in the feelings of anxiety and fear and all of that we tend to face in our left brain world.
And that's the key. That's what holds us back. We got to get out of our own way a lot of times. Sure. As entrepreneurs, as business owners, sometimes our own thoughts, we pinch our own flow, unfortunately.
So true.
Yeah. So Adele, then tell us, how can we connect with you? How can we find you?
So the best thing to do is if you're interested in getting a free copy of my book, just go to shift4steps.com. So that's the number 4. If you want to know more about me and my thought leadership, then you're welcome to go to adelespraggon.com. So just my name.com. But if you go to shift4steps.com, there's some free videos in there as well, free copy of my book. So you'll get some really good information, which will get you repatterning. So I suggest just, if you're a reader, go read the book. If you're not, go watch the video that you find there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been a pleasure learning about how to tap into our full potential and the 4 steps to actually identify what those negative patterns are and how to reprogram. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you, Lenine. I'm happy to be here.
Yes.
Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please comment and tell us what was your favorite part, your favorite habit that you are going to try out for yourself today. Comment below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I will see you at the top of your best morning routine ever. Stay blessed.